Beneath the shimmering chandeliers of a Philadelphia ballroom, Avery Brooks lifts a wine glass, laced with a poison so cruel it could silence her heartbeat before the last note of the toast. But who slipped death into her hand? Her ruthless mother-in-law, or the husband she trusts with her soul? One sip could orphan her unborn child, exposing a family secret so shocking it'll leave you reeling. Was it betrayal or blind hate that set this trap? Hit that subscribe button and help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers to uncover the truth together. Under the trembling flicker of a chandelier in a grand Philadelphia ballroom, Avery Brooks raised a glass of crimson wine to her lips, its surface glinting like a polished blade in the dim light. She didn't know it yet, but the drink was laced with a toxin so insidious it could halt her heart mid-beat, leaving her crumpled on the polished floor before a sea of stunned strangers. Was it Eleanor Bennett, her ruthless mother-in-law, who'd slipped death into the ruby liquid with or was there a betrayal even closer, a shadow lurking in the one place she felt safe? One sip could unravel the towering empire of the Bennett family, or steal the breath of a mother whose child hadn't yet seen the world. The air thickened with whispers as the city's skyline bled red beyond the windows, a silent witness to the storm about to break. Hit that subscribe button right now, folks, and stick with us as we peel back the layers of a truth so dark, so twisted, it'll cling to your thoughts long after the lights go out. It was Wednesday, March 12th, 2025, and Avery Brooks stepped out of Jefferson Hospital's pharmacy wing, her white coat slung over her arm like a shed skin. The Philadelphia dusk painted the sky in streaks of crimson and gold, casting long shadows across the brick and glass sprawl of the city. At 32, Avery had carved out a life she could hold her head high for. A scholarship kid from a working-class corner of South Philly, who'd fought tooth and nail through pharmacy school to land a head pharmacist gig at one of the city's top hospitals. Her sneakers scuffed the asphalt as she crossed the parking lot, the air sharp with the scent of spring rain and diesel fumes. She fished her phone from her pocket, its screen glowing with a text from her husband, Noah Bennett. Running late at the lab, breakthrough on the horizon, love you. A faint smile tugged at her lips. 8 years with Noah had smoothed the jagged edges of her relentless days, his warm hazel eyes and quiet laugh a tether to something softer. But there was a secret she hadn't shared with him yet, one that fluttered beneath her ribs like a trapped bird. 6 weeks ago, a faint double line on a drugstore test had changed everything. She was pregnant. A tiny, fragile heartbeat she hadn't found the courage to confess, not with the weight of the Bennett family pressing down on her. Noah was more than her husband. He was the son of Eleanor Bennett, the iron-fisted matriarch of Bennett Labs, a pharmaceutical giant with roots stretching back to the city's colonial days. The Bennetts were old money, their name etched into boardrooms and whispered at galas, a dynasty Avery had never felt welcome in. She typed back a quick, "Love you too, be safe," and slid into her beat-up gray Honda, the kind of car that stuck out like a sore thumb among the gleaming SUVs in the lot. Her phone buzzed again as she turned the key, the engine coughing to life. The screen lit up with a name that made her stomach twist. Eleanor Bennett. For a heartbeat, she considered letting it roll to voicemail. Eleanor's calls were rarely pleasant, but curiosity, or maybe a stubborn streak, won out. She took a steadying breath, the kind you draw before stepping into a lion's den, and answered. Avery, came Eleanor's voice, smooth as velvet but edged with ice. I hope I'm not interrupting your little pill-counting routine. The pause that followed was heavy, deliberate, a jab dressed up as courtesy. No, Eleanor, just heading home. What's up? Avery kept her tone even, though her knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. It's about Sophie's engagement party this weekend, Eleanor said, her words clipped. I'd prefer you skip the rehearsal dinner on Friday. It's a small thing, just family. You understand, don't you? The phrase, just family, landed like a slap, a reminder of the line Eleanor had drawn in the sand from the moment Avery said, I do. Avery swallowed the sting, years of practice keeping her voice steady. What about Noah? She asked. I'll handle my son, Eleanor replied, her tone sharpening like a blade being honed. You've got enough on your plate, don't you? All those prescriptions to fill? A beat, then. Oh, and Avery, we don't need reminders of past mistakes at a time like this, like Grace. The line went dead before Avery could respond, the dial tone buzzing in her ear like a swarm of wasps. She sat there, frozen, the phone still pressed to her cheek. Grace Bennett, Noah's younger sister, dead at 19 in a car crash a decade ago. A tragedy the family buried under layers of silence. Avery had heard the story in fragments. A rainy night, a sharp curve, brakes that failed. Noah rarely spoke of it, his eyes clouding over whenever her name came up. But Eleanor's words weren't a casual mention. They were a warning, a ghost dragged into the light to unsettle her. Avery tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the wheel, her hands trembling as she stared out at the city's shimmering skyline. The Liberty Bell glowed in the distance, a symbol of freedom that felt mocking tonight. She'd met Noah at a pharma conference 5 years back, his easy grin cutting through the crowd of stiff suits like a lifeline. He'd been a researcher at Bennett Labs then, brilliant and unassuming, a stark contrast to the empire his mother ruled with an iron grip. They'd built a life together in a cozy Society Hill walk-up, a bubble of warmth against the chill of his family's disdain. But lately, that bubble felt fragile, cracks spidering through it with every barbed word from Eleanor or sneer from Sophie, Noah's younger sister and Eleanor's mirror image. Sophie's engagement to Liam Harper, heir to another Philly elite family, was the latest stage for the Bennetts to flex their power and remind Avery she didn't belong. As she drove through the city, past the Schuylkill River's dark shimmer, a memory flickered to life. 2 weeks ago, she'd spotted Eleanor at a local apothecary, an odd place for a woman who sent assistance for her coffee. Eleanor's manicured fingers had clutched a paper bag, her posture stiffening when she saw Avery. "Just gardening supplies," she'd said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But Avery's trained eye caught the label Datura stramonium, Jimson weed, a plant she'd studied in toxicology. Small doses could heal, larger ones could kill. The encounter had stuck with her, a splinter she couldn't pull free. Now, with Eleanor's call echoing in her head, that splinter felt more like a dagger. Avery pulled into her parking spot, the engine ticking as it cooled. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than a snub at a party. She rested a hand on her stomach, feeling that faint pulse of life beneath her skin. For Noah, for this child, she'd face whatever storm Eleanor was brewing. But as the crimson sky faded to black, one thought gnawed at her. What if the Bennett's shadows hid more than she'd ever imagined? Avery Brooks pushed open the door to their Society Hill apartment, the faint creak of the hinges swallowed by the hum of Philly traffic filtering through the cracked window. It was Wednesday night, March 12, 2025, and the weight of Eleanor's call still pressed against her chest like a stone. She dropped her keys on the counter, their jingle sharp against the quiet, and her eyes landed on an embossed invitation propped against a vase. Sophie Bennett and Liam Harper, Saturday, March 15th, 2025. A sticky note clung to it in Noah's familiar scrawl. Mom stopped by, asked where you were, said you working late, love you. Avery's fingers brushed the gold lettering, her stomach twisting. Eleanor delivering it in person was a rarity, a move too deliberate for a woman who preferred couriers over courtesy. She sank onto the couch, the invitation still in hand, and let her head tip back against the cushion. Noah wouldn't be home for hours. Another late night at Bennett Labs, chasing a breakthrough he'd tease her about over coffee tomorrow. Alone with her thoughts, she couldn't shake Eleanor's voice. We don't need reminders of past mistakes. Like Grace. It wasn't just a barb, it was a thread begging to be pulled. Avery's hand drifted to her stomach, the secret heartbeat there grounding her. She wasn't paranoid. Years of deciphering prescriptions had sharpened her instincts, but something about Eleanor's tone felt like a prelude to something darker. Her gaze wandered to the bookshelf across the room, a cluttered mix of Noah's science journals and her old pharmacology texts. A glint of metal caught her eye, a rusted tin box wedged behind a stack of books, one she'd never noticed before. Curiosity tugged at her, and she crossed the room, tugging it free with a scrape of rust against wood. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook, its edges frayed, the word Grace scratched into the cover in a shaky hand. Avery's breath hitched. No one never talked about his sister beyond the barest details. Car crash 10 years ago, end of story. She flipped it open, the brittle pages crackling under her touch. March 1, 2015, the first entry read, "Mom caught me with Jamie again today. She says he's beneath us, a security guard, not a Bennett. I told her I love him. She just smiled, said I'd regret it." Avery's pulse quickened as she skimmed ahead. March 3. She was in the lab late last night. I followed her, saw her take a vial from the locked cabinet. It smelled bitter, like death. She didn't see me, but I'm scared. The final entry. Dated March 7. Jamie's gone. She paid him to leave. I told her I'd tell Dad everything. She laughed, said no one would believe me. I can't stay silent. A week later, Grace was dead. Her car plunging off a rain-slicked road, brakes failing on a curve. Avery's hands trembled as she closed the journal, the tin clattering to the floor. Her mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't dared to see before. 2 weeks ago, she'd run into Eleanor at that apothecary near Rittenhouse Square, a place too humble for a woman who owned half the city's pharmacy. Eleanor had been clutching a paper bag, her posture stiffening when Avery approached. "Gardening supplies," she'd said, her smile tight as a vice, but Avery had glimpsed the label. Datura stramonium, Jimson weed, a plant she'd dissected in toxicology class. Its seeds carried atropine, a belladonna alkaloid, medicinal in microdoses, lethal when concentrated. Eleanor didn't garden, she had landscapers for her mainline estate. That bag wasn't for roses, it was a weapon. She stood and paced to the kitchen, filling a glass with water to steady her nerves. The pieces clicked together like a puzzle she didn't want to finish. Grace's journal painted a picture of Eleanor as more than a snob. She was ruthless, maybe even a killer. Avery thought back to a family dinner 6 months ago at the Bennett mansion, a sprawling pile of stone and ivy dripping with old money. Sophie had leaned across the mahogany table, champagne flute in hand, her smirk sharp as a blade. "Avery, you're a pharmacist, right? Must be thrilling, counting pills while we run an empire." The room had laughed, Eleanor's eyes glinting with approval. Noah had squeezed Avery's hand under the table, whispering, "Ignore her." But his gentle rebukes never went further. He always believed his mother and sister would soften with time. Avery wasn't so sure anymore. Her phone buzzed on the counter, snapping her out of the memory. A text from Tyler Hayes, Noah's college buddy and her occasional sounding board. "Heard you're off the VIP list for Friday. You okay?" Tyler moonlighted as a server at the Ritz-Carlton, where Sophie's engagement bash would unfold. Avery typed back, "Eleanor's orders. I'll live. You working?" His reply came fast. "Yeah, black tie crowd. Need me to sneak you a drink?" She hesitated, then added, "Keep an eye out for me, okay? Something's off." Tyler sent a thumbs up emoji, but the unease in her gut? She set the phone down and stared at Grace's journal, now open on the coffee table. The date of Sophie's party glared back. March 15, 3 days away. Her pharmacist's brain spun, recalling Datura's profile. Odorless in powder form, perfect for slipping into a drink. Atropine could blur your vision, spike your heart rate, or stop it cold if the dose was right. Eleanor had access to Bennett labs with chemicals most couldn't dream of touching. Avery's mouth went dry despite the water. Was she jumping to conclusions? Or was this the shadow she'd felt creeping closer? She thought of Noah, his easy trust in his family, his refusal to see their claws. He'd mentioned Grace's death once, years ago, shrugging it off as a fluke. "Bad breaks," he'd said, but the doubt in his voice had lingered. Avery hadn't pressed him. He hated family drama. But now those fragments felt like warnings. She grabbed her laptop from the coffee table and typed Datura stramonium poisoning into the search bar. The screen glowed with confirmation. Symptoms matched a heart attack in high doses, subtle enough to pass as natural if you weren't looking. Her stomach twisted. Eleanor's gardening excuse was a lie, fraying at the edges. The invitation mocked her from the table, Sophie's name in gold a taunt. Avery wasn't invited to the rehearsal, but the party? She'd have to be there, for Noah, if nothing else. 3 days. She had 3 days to brace herself for whatever Eleanor had planned. Her phone stayed silent, no word from Noah, no follow-up from Tyler. The city outside pulsed with life, oblivious to the storm brewing in her mind. She took a sip of water, its coolness steadying her resolve. If Eleanor wanted to play dirty, Avery wouldn't go down without a fight, not with a child's life flickering inside her. But as the night deepened, one question clawed at her. How far had Eleanor gone before? And how far would she go again? The fluorescent lights of Jefferson Hospital's cafeteria buzzed overhead as Avery Brooks sat across from Tyler Hayes, a styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee trembling in her hands. It was Thursday morning, March 13, 2025. Less than 48 hours until Sophie's engagement party, and the weight of Grace's journal still burned in her mind. She'd barely slept, the words, "It smelled like death," looping through her thoughts alongside Eleanor's icy voice. We don't need reminders of past mistakes. Avery had come straight from her shift, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, her white coat swapped for a faded hoodie. Tyler, all lanky limbs and easy grins, sipped his own coffee, his server's apron slung over the chair beside him. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, eyeing her over the rim of his cup. "I might have," Avery muttered, her voice low. She glanced around. Nurses clattered trays in the distance, but no one was close enough to hear. "I need a favor, Tyler. You're working Sophie's party, right?" He nodded, brow furrowing. "Yeah. Saturday night at the Ritz. Big spenders, black tie vibes. Why?" Avery hesitated, then leaned in, her words barely above a whisper. "I've got a bad feeling about my drink. Eleanor's up to something. I don't know what, but I can't shake it. Can you swap my glass with a clean one, discreetly?" Tyler's eyes widened, but he didn't laugh. He'd known Noah since their Penn State days, had seen the Bennett family's sharp edges up close. "You serious? You think she'd—" He stopped, reading her face. "Okay, damn. I've got you. I'll watch your table like a hawk, but, Avery, if something's off, you tell me, all right? Noah's my boy, and you're good people." "Thanks," she said, a flicker of relief cutting through the tension. "It's just a hunch. Maybe I'm wrong." Tyler squeezed her arm, his voice dropping. "I hope you are. But I overheard Sophie at the hotel yesterday. Her and Eleanor were in the lobby whispering, something about making it unforgettable. Sounded personal. Be careful, okay?" Avery nodded, her throat tightening. Unforgettable. The word coiled around her thoughts like smoke, heavy with menace. She left the cafeteria, the clatter of trays fading behind her, and stepped into the hospital's sterile halls. Her mind churned. Grace's journal, Eleanor's datura, Tyler's warning. It was no longer just a family grudge. It felt like a noose tightening. Back at her desk, Avery pulled up the guest list Noah had emailed weeks ago, a digital scroll of Philly's elite. Hundreds of names, hers buried at the bottom like an afterthought. She stared at it, then at the photo on her desk. Her and Noah on their wedding day, his arm around her, both beaming. She'd fought to build this life with him, clawing past Eleanor's sneers and Sophie's jabs. Now, that fight felt literal. Her phone buzzed, shattering the silence. An unknown number. The message glowed on the screen. "They know you're digging. Don't come to the party if you want to live." Her pulse spiked, her fingers hovering over the keys. She forwarded it to Tyler with a quick, "What the hell is this?" His reply came in seconds. "Jesus, Avery, meet me tonight? Ritz Bar, 8 p.m. I've got something to tell you." The rest of her shift blurred by, prescriptions filled on autopilot as her mind raced. At 8 p.m., she slipped into the Ritz-Carlton's dimly lit bar. The clink of glasses and murmur of suits a stark contrast to the storm inside her. Tyler was already there, nursing a soda, his usual grin replaced by a tight jaw. "That text?" he said as she slid into the booth. "It's not a prank. I saw a guy at the hotel yesterday. Scar on his neck, Bennett Labs badge pinned to his jacket. He cornered me after my shift. Said to keep my mouth shut or I'd end up like the maid." Avery's breath caught. The maid, she pressed. Tyler leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. Yeah, Eleanor Ortiz worked at the Bennett estate years back. She died in a gas leak with her whole family. Husband, 2 kids. Official report said accident, but this guy, he smirked when he mentioned her. Like it was a job well done. Avery's stomach lurched. She remembered the whispers. Elena fired days before her death, supposedly over a broken vase. Noah had brushed it off as old gossip when she'd asked once. When was this? She asked, her voice shaking. About 7 years ago, Tyler said. Few years after Grace. The timeline clicked. Too close. Too neat. There's more, Tyler added. I heard Sophie on the phone this morning, cleaning up after a delivery. She told Eleanor, if she doesn't drink it, we'll try again. They're not screwing around, Avery. Her blood ran cold. Try again. This wasn't a one-off. It was a plan with contingencies. She dug into her purse, pulling out a crumpled receipt she'd found in Noah's coat pocket weeks ago, forgotten until Grace's journal jolted her memory. It was from Bennett Labs, dated last month. Eleanor's signature scrawled across an order for lab-grade chemicals, including atropine precursors. Look at this, she said, sliding it across the table. Tyler's eyes widened. Holy crap! She's got access to stuff that could wipe out half the city. You think... I think? She's done it before, Avery cut in. Grace's brakes didn't fail on their own. Elena's family didn't just die, and now me. Her voice broke, her hand instinctively brushing her stomach. Tyler caught the gesture, his face softening. You're pregnant, aren't you? She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. 6 weeks. Noah... Tyler swore under his breath, running a hand through his hair. Okay, we're in deep now. This isn't just Eleanor being a bitch. This is a cover-up. Bennett Labs has been shady for years, rumors about off-book trials, but nothing sticks. That Scar guy? He's muscle, not management. Someone's pulling strings. Avery's mind spun. The datura from the apothecary wasn't a whim. It was a backup for whatever Eleanor had cooked up in those labs. Why me? She whispered. She hates me, sure, but this? Tyler shrugged, grim. Maybe you're a loose end. Grace knew something, Elena too. Now, you're digging where they don't want you. The bar's chatter faded as the reality sank in. Eleanor wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. She was a predator, and Avery was prey in a web stretching beyond the Bennett mansion. She thought of Noah, still at the lab, oblivious to the monster his mother might be. I can't skip the party, she said, her voice steadying. Noah will ask why. I need proof, and I need to protect him. Tyler nodded. I'll be your eye Saturday. But Avery, if this goes south, it won't, she said, more to herself than him. Not if I'm ready. She left the Ritz, the city's lights blurring through a haze of fear and resolve. 2 days. She had 2 days to face a threat she could barely grasp, one that might have killed before and wouldn't hesitate again. For Noah, for their child, she'd walk into the lion's den. But as she stepped into the night, a shadow lingered across the street. A man with a scar watching her go. Avery Brooks stood in the dim light of their Society Hill apartment, the clock ticking past midnight into Friday, March 14th, 2025. The Ritz-Carlton loomed in her mind, less than 24 hours away, its glittering facade a stage for whatever Eleanor Bennett had planned. Grace's journal lay open on the coffee table, its final words, I can't stay silent. A haunting echo of her own resolve. Tyler's warning from the bar replayed like a broken record. They'll try again. The crumpled receipt from Bennett Labs, the anonymous text, the scarred man watching her. Each piece tightened the knot in her chest. She couldn't run, not with Noah in the dark, not with their child's life flickering inside her. She had to fight. She grabbed her phone and hit record, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Tyler, if this goes wrong tomorrow, I need you to have this. Eleanor's behind it. Grace's death, maybe Elena's too. I found her buying datura, and this receipt proves she's got lab access to worse. Swap my glass if you can. I'm counting on you. She sent it to him, a digital lifeline, then turned to the small safe in their bedroom. With a pen and a scrap of paper, she scribbled a note. Noah, if I don't come back, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. Eleanor's the one. Grace's journal, the datura, all of it. You and our baby are my world. I love you. She sealed it in an envelope, locked it away, and pressed her forehead against the cool metal. This wasn't just survival. It was a promise to the life she carried. From her purse, she pulled a small vial of atropine antidote, a pharmacist's precaution she'd kept since school. She'd studied its effects, a counter to the poison she suspected Eleanor would use. It fit in her palm, a fragile shield against the storm. She slipped it into the lining of her clutch, alongside her phone, and sank onto the bed. Noah wouldn't be home until dawn, his breakthrough keeping him late again. She pictured his face, those hazel eyes crinkling when he smiled, and her resolve hardened. Eleanor wouldn't take him from her. Not like she might have taken Grace. Saturday evening arrived like a thunderclap. Avery stepped into the Ritz-Carlton ballroom, her arm looped through Noah's, the weight of her navy dress simple, elegant, feeling like armor against the sea of designer gowns and tuxedos. The chandeliers cast a golden glow, champagne flutes clinking as Philly's elite traded laughs and handshakes. Noah, sharp in his black tie, squeezed her hand. You look incredible, he whispered, kissing her cheek. Let's enjoy this, okay? It's Sophie's night. Avery forced a smile, her heart pounding. For you, she said softly, squeezing back. But inside, anxiety churned like a riptide. A young staffer checked their names against a list, her smile faltering. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, your seats are over there. She pointed to a table in the far corner, half hidden behind a pillar, as far from the main stage as possible. Noah frowned. That's a mistake, right? I'm the bride's brother. The staffer shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Eleanor Bennett's instructions. She was specific. Anger flashed across Noah's face, but he swallowed it. It's Sophie's day, he muttered to Avery. We'll deal with it later. You okay with this? She nodded, jaw tight. For you, she repeated, though her eyes scanned the room. Eleanor stood near the main table, resplendent in sapphire silk, her silver hair swept into a flawless chignon. She caught Avery's gaze and offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Avery, she called, gliding over. You've managed to clean up nicely tonight. A step up, I suppose. Noah bristled, but Avery touched his arm, her voice calm. Thank you, Eleanor. It's a stunning event. Eleanor's laugh was brittle, a shard of glass. Yes, a Bennett tradition. You wouldn't understand. She turned to Noah. The main table's for Sophie's friends, darling. You'll be fine here. Before he could argue, she swept away, leaving a trail of perfume and venom. The evening unfolded in a haze of toasts and music, Sophie entering with Liam Harper, her cream gown a beacon of wealth. Avery's unease grew, her fingers brushing the clutch in her lap. Tyler appeared briefly, weaving through tables with a tray of desserts, catching her eye with a subtle nod. She'd texted him that morning, swap it if you can, something's wrong. He had replied, on it. Now, she trusted him to be her shield in this gilded battlefield. A young waiter approached their table, setting a wineglass before her with a practiced smile. For you, ma'am, she murmured a thank you, lifting it to her lips. But then she froze. A faint, bitter whiff hit her nose, barely there but unmistakable to her trained senses. Atropine. Her heart thudded as she tilted the glass, catching a slight haze in the deep red liquid. Nothing anyone else would notice, but to her, it screamed danger. She set it down, hands steadied despite the panic clawing her chest. Noah glanced over, brow creasing. What's wrong? The smell's off, she whispered. It's not right. He sighed, a mix of affection and exasperation. You're overthinking, babe. Mom's a pain, but she's not. He cut himself off, picking up her glass. Look, it's fine. Before she could stop him, he took a sip, swirling it with a grin. Tastes great, see? A gasp ripped through the room as Noah's hand faltered, the glass slipping from his fingers. He clutched his throat, choking, his eyes rolling back as he slumped from the chair. Noah! Avery screamed, dropping to her knees beside him, fumbling for the antidote in her clutch. The ballroom spun into chaos, guests gasping, chairs scraping. Eleanor leapt from her seat, her voice slicing through the din. Noah! No. But Sophie's shriek drowned her out. Mom, why's he down? You said the dose wasn't enough. Avery's tears blurred her vision as she jammed the syringe into his arm, her voice breaking. Stay with me, please. His chest heaved, eyes fluttering open, a raspy whisper escaping. Avery, you saved me. Across the room, Eleanor staggered, her composure shattering as she tried to bolt. Tyler blocked her path, tray clattering to the floor, his shout ringing out. She hired someone to kill Elena Ortiz's whole family. Check the records. Avery cradled Noah, her sobs mixing with relief as he gripped her hand. But in the crowd's edge, a shadow moved. A man with a scar on his neck, slipping out before anyone noticed. The night wasn't over, but the game had flipped. Avery wiped her tears, resolve hardening. Eleanor had miscalculated, and Avery had the proof to bury her. The sterile glow of Jefferson Hospital's lab bathed Avery Brooks as she stood with her arms crossed, the tiny vial of wine from Sophie's engagement party clutched in her hand. It was Sunday morning, March 16th, 2025, less than 12 hours since the Ritz-Carlton ballroom had erupted into chaos. Noah choking on the floor, Eleanor's panic cry, Sophie's damning words echoing in the stunned silence. The vial felt heavier than it should, its faint red hue a silent witness to the night that had nearly torn her world apart. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying Noah's collapse, her desperate syringe plunge, and Tyler's shouted accusation. She hired someone to kill Elena Ortiz's whole family. Now, in the lab's cold quiet, she'd turned suspicion into steel-clad truth. Jen Carter, her lab tech friend, greeted her with a yawn and a smirk. Morning, Avery. You look like death warmed over. What's with the emergency sample? Her grin faded as Avery handed over the vial, her expression grim. I need this analyzed. Full toxin screen. ASAP. Not just alcohol content. Jen raised an eyebrow but took it without a word. Years of professionalism kicking in. She pipetted a drop into the spectrometer, the machine humming to life as Avery paced, her sneakers squeaking against the tile. The party had ended in a blur, paramedics rushing Noah to the ER, Eleanor and Sophie vanishing into the crowd, Tyler whispering he'd swapped her glass but saw Sophie hovering near it earlier. Avery had kissed Noah goodnight in his hospital bed, his vitals stable, then slipped out at dawn for answers. Jen's voice broke her spiral. Okay, this is wild. Take a look. Avery hurried to the screen, her pulse spiking. The data glowed in sharp lines. Traces of atropine, a belladonna alkaloid, laced into the wine. Not a huge dose, Jen said, scrolling through the results. Maybe 0.5 milligrams. Enough to knock you out, hallucinate, maybe stop your heart if you're small or weak. Not lethal unless you down the bottle. She glanced at Avery, tone shifting. This wasn't an accident, was it? Avery's hands shook as she clutched the printout. No, it was meant for me. Noah drank it instead. She explained, the Datura sighting, Grace's journal, Sophie's slip. You said the dose wasn't enough. Jen's eyes widened. Holy hell, Avery. Your mother-in-law tried to poison you at a party? That's next-level psycho. I need to tell Noah first, Avery said, folding the report. No police yet. Jen frowned, but nodded. Your call, just watch your back. Back home, Noah was propped on the couch in his pajamas, a mug of tea in hand, his color returning, but his eyes shadowed. He looked up as Avery walked in, brow creasing. You're up early? Everything okay? She set the lab report on the coffee table and sat beside him, her heart pounding. We need to talk about last night. Your wine, he chuckled, brushing it off. Mom's meltdown? She's always dramatic. I'm fine, see? He flexed an arm, grinning, but the smile faded as Avery slid the report toward him. This is from my glass. The one you drank? Atropine, Noah, a toxin. Small dose, but dangerous. I had it tested. Noah stared at the paper, tea forgotten, his scientist's brain kicking in. Atropine? Like poison? He scanned the numbers, then looked up, disbelief carving lines into his face. You don't think Mom would... Avery, come on. Why? She took a breath, her words measured. I saw her buying Datura 2 weeks ago. Jimson weed, it's got atropine. She said it was for gardening, but Eleanor doesn't garden. Last night, she freaked when you drank it. Sophie too. They expected me to go down, not you. Noah's jaw tightened, eyes darting between her and the report. This is insane. She's my mother. She wouldn't... He faltered, slumping back. I felt off last night. Dizzy, throat dry. Thought it was the crowd. You're saying that was it? Avery nodded, her hand finding his. The dose was small, tailored for me. You're bigger, and you only sipped. That's why you're okay? Noah's face darkened, anger flickering behind the shock. Why you? She's cold, but this? Avery hesitated, then pulled Grace's journal from her purse, opening it to the last page. Grace knew something. Wrote about Eleanor taking a vial from the lab, days before her crash. And this? She handed him the receipt. Eleanor ordered chemicals last month. She's got the means, Noah. His eyes widened, the paper trembling in his hand. No way. She's ruthless, but this... He sank back, voice breaking. I always wondered about Grace. The timing was off. I didn't push it. God, Avery, what if you're right? Her phone buzzed. Tyler, she answered, keeping it low. Hey. His tone was urgent. Avery, I overheard Sophie at the hotel this morning freaking out to Eleanor. If she didn't drink it, we'll try again. They're not done. Avery's blood chilled. Thanks, Tyler. Keep me posted. She hung up, meeting Noah's gaze. They're planning something else. We confront them tomorrow, together. Noah nodded, his face hardening. Mom's place. First thing. With this, he tapped the report, voice steel. They don't get to lie. Monday, March 17th, dawned gray and crisp, the Bennett mansion looming against the sky like a fortress. Noah rang the bell, his hand tight around Avery's, the lab report and vial in her purse like loaded guns. James, the butler, led them through the grand foyer, past portraits of stern Bennetts, to the reception room. Eleanor appeared, silk robe swishing, her composure cracking as she saw them. What's this about? Noah didn't flinch. What did you put in Avery's glass, Mom? Eleanor's mouth opened, then closed. That's absurd. Stop, Noah snapped, stepping forward. Avery laid the report on the table. Atropine. You panicked when Noah drank it. Sophie burst in, eyes wild. You can't prove anything. Noah turned on her. Tyler saw you tamper with it. Mom ordered it. Don't pretend. Eleanor sank into a chair, her face ashen. Ever since you married her, it's been chaos, she spat at Avery. Noah was meant for better, like Emily Klein, not you. Sophie nodded, voice shaking. We wanted her gone, humiliated, not dead. Noah's fists clenched. You poisoned my wife and thought I'd thank you? You're done. Eleanor's bravado crumbled, tears streaking her face. Noah, please. Goodbye, Mom, he said, ice in his voice, taking Avery's hand. They walked out, the heavy doors slamming shut. A year later, March 2026, sunlight spilled into their suburban Philly home. Avery cradled Faith, their 3-month-old daughter, a symbol of the life they'd reclaimed. Noah, now at a rival lab, kissed her neck. Sleep okay? Better than ever, she grinned, leaning into him. But the past lingered. Weekly letters from Eleanor piled unopened in a drawer, and a torn page from Grace's journal hinted at another player. That night, Avery glanced out the window, Faith in her arms, and froze. A scarred man stood under the street lamp, watching.